stream. We'll come up with a different name possibly, but it's very exciting. We've got a lot of great machine builders here to talk, and Guy will be hosting the discussion. But first, please, if you're watching, let us know in the chat room if it's working for you. Share it around a little bit, and I'm going to read off some of the upcoming events while that's actually happening. So let me screen share with you the event schedule. So this is coming in from, we are beaming from the Reinventing the Tattoo app. If you go to your app store of choice and do a search for Reinventing the Tattoo, please download it and check it out. It's a way for you to to get attention for all of these upcoming events. So this is the, like I said, the Machine Madness panel, 1 o'clock on Tuesdays. We'll be doing different events for Reinventing. Every Thursday at 12 noon is the Tattoo Collecting Podcast. Fawn and Jordan interview tattoo collectors, and they've got some pretty amazing collectors getting some pretty sick tattoos. Tomorrow's is going to be a collector of Ty McEwen's got a full body suit of bio going on. They've got like over 10, 15 different episodes already up in the archives. Tattoo Collecting Podcast is every Thursday. We have Reinventing Drawing Groups that happen Sunday at 1 o'clock, every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Check the schedules and join us. Jake Meeks from the Fireside Network does one. Jason Lesser does one. Every Monday at 9 o'clock are the Reinventing Subscribers exercises. This is if you're paying for the subscription. It's a pretty reasonable price for getting exclusive group exercises with Guy Aitchison and awesome guest teachers every Monday at 9 o'clock. Other cool things coming up. We've got actually Tony Urbanek, who's on this panel, has a machine building workshop. It's 8 live seminars for $300. It's a fucking steal. Every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I believe, 2 hours. And you're going to scrounge up the pieces parts and build a machine by hand. It's pretty sick. He does have bags of parts if you're running out of time or whatever. Let's see, other things that we have coming up. On the 12th, we've got Bruno, and I can't speak Spanish, so pardon it, but it's going to be an art jam that's in Espanol. If you have Spanish-speaking friends, let them know on the 12th at 9 p.m. The art jam's going to be going on. Everyone can zoom in and paint. The history of tattoo conventions with Marco Leone, the first Italian tattoo conventions happening on the 13th. Basically, go to the Reinventing the Tattoo app, click on the schedule. There's so much shit going on. Live in the Castro, Nick Baxter's got a still life coming up, fantasy art with Leo. It's pretty sick. So a couple quick sponsors that help make these go out. Free of charge, inkjetstencils.com. If you use your computer to manipulate your tattoo reference, then you can print out on the inkjet stencils. It actually prints out the stencils. There is a big icon inside of the app, the Reinventing app. Click on it, you'll see all sorts of demos. And then, yeah, Cheyenne has a tattoo machine that we're giving away. We're literally like, this is the last chance pretty much that you're going to have. tattooeducation.com/giveaway. It's a vetting form, so obviously machines are only going to vetted people. Even if you're already vetted on the tattoo education list, put another entry in so that we know that you're interested in the Cheyenne machine. And it looks like we've got this going on the YouTubes successfully and the Facebooks. And I appreciate everybody bearing with all the announcements and stuff. Again, let us know in the chat room where you're watching what your favorite tattoo machine is, if you have any questions for anybody, and then I will hand it off to Guy and disappear and only come back for problems. I do have a browser fired up so I can surf anywhere that I need to, and I might pop in with some chat room comments. Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Guy.
Thanks, Gabe. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Welcome to our machine panel. Today, we are going to be talking about both kinds of machines, and we have kind of an open agenda, but we have machine builders from both sides of the coil and rotary aisle, and this is not a one better than the other kind of conversation. We're going to talk about every aspect of different machines, what makes them good, what you can do to make your machines work better. If you're wanting to build machines, there's a chance to ask questions. But I'd like to begin by just introducing everyone and asking each of them the same question, because I usually ask artists when I'm interviewing about their apprenticeships. But when it comes to machines, each of you built your first machine at some point, and in many cases it might have been a cassette motor kind of doodad, but I'm curious about it. So let's start with Mr. Tony Urbanek. And Tony, you're actually going to be teaching this multi-part seminar coming up pretty soon. And if anyone who's tuned in right now likes what Tony has to say, this will give you an unprecedented chance to pick the brain of a machine builder and work along with them, following step by step. Highly recommended. Tony, thanks for coming on. And why don't you tell us about your first machine that you ever built?
First machine ever built, like personally, or like just in general? You remember the old National kits they used to sell back in the day, like the late 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Early 90s. That was my first attempts at putting a machine together. It was kind of like the jump off point for me that got me hooked in. But yeah, it was a disaster, actually. That was bad. I had no guidance. Back then, we didn't have mentors for machine building and whatnot, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But a few years later, I got interested in the mechanics of machine building and started playing around with some different pieces and parts, like angle iron and whatnot. And one of my first machines was actually made from a piece of angle iron that I rummaged off of the railroad tracks in Pittsburgh. And I did it all with a grinder with files by hand. I bent it, hammered it. Like it's very crude. It was a very crude beginning, but that's what sparked like a heavy interest in the education and the learning and the studying and refining of the craft of machine building. And I actually have it right here in my hand.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah. So let me see.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, for hand filing out of a piece of railroad rummage.
Angle iron. So
yeah.
Wait, let me see. Okay, that's how you do it. Yeah, I bent the rear spring shelf over, and then I just hand ground and filed very crudely. And I only had a hand drill at the time too. So
Wow.
it was pretty rough, man. But
So
I actually rebuilt this years later just so it could semi-run. It actually isn't that bad.
What did you learn from that? What was your hardest lesson that you picked up from that experience?
Well, there was two things I learned from that. One was tooling, like the importance of good tools. And I'm sure I learned some safety issues along the way too. I learned a bit about material density. I learned like it was a step-by-step process. Like I had nobody teaching me at that point. So I had to figure out how to wrap coils, how to make the collet, how to line. Geometry was the big thing. Yeah, geometry was a big thing too. Yeah,
well, especially when you're bending it like that, to be able to nail your geometries has got to
Yeah.
I think it was pure luck at that point. I think I took like a machine, one of my Jones machines, and I just kind of scribed out the hole patterns and worked off of that roughly. But I didn't have a concept of how geometry worked on machines at that point. I was just trying to get something to function. And like I said, that was a good jump off point. It was a tough learning curve. And I guess the best takeaway from that, honestly, was just the idea of, or not the idea, but actually crafting a functioning piece of art that I could tattoo with by myself. It was the gratifying phase of it that I really enjoyed. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, thank you, Tony. Mark Lescarbo, am I saying that right?
Yep, but he is not. He hasn't beamed in yet. Sorry to say.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to Greg Degisento. I believe you told me how to pronounce it, so hopefully I didn't butcher that.
Degisento, that's fine.
Greg. I'd love to hear about the first machine you ever built.
I started tattooing in '99. My apprenticeship was at what used to be a Philadelphia Eddie's. It was owned by Eddie. It was bought by somebody else in my neighborhood of Atlantic City, New Jersey. The guy taught me how to tattoo. He basically said, you know, take this machine apart and put it back together, and you got a tattoo with it. So I said, okay. And it was a Spalding Supreme. I took it apart. I put it back together. I butchered people with it. And, you know, basically had to, like, you know, figure out from there what to do, you know. So it was, you know, Spalding Supreme, National Swing Gate. I took those apart and put those back together. And it pretty much led to, like, you know, there was never a machine that I had. There was maybe one machine that I had in my whole life that I never took apart. And everything that I've ever had since then, I've taken apart and put back together and modified it and made it run better or worse in some cases. But that one machine that I had was a Aaron Kane Grime Graffiti G from 2002 from Aaron Kane. And, you know, like the only way I could, like, change the springs is if they broke. And I used that machine for a very long time. But that's basically it.
I think he would rather you just send it back to him and let him change the springs. He's kind of like that.
Well, I mean, in those times, it was like, you know, my old girlfriend ordered that machine for me for my birthday. Like, I never talked to Aaron or anything, and it was like a huge surprise. It was the best thing to ever come out of that relationship, but that's another story. But, like, you know, but it was like, at that time, it was like, there's no way I'm, like, calling Aaron Kane, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't, like, call people to, like, get your machines tuned, you know. It wasn't a thing, you know, until I'm guessing way later. But other than that, I think 2004, I bought a Soba Pilot kit from Workhorse, and I put that thing together, and it sucked, like, real bad. And I tattooed people forever with that thing. But you know, I think that's where my interest in tattoo machines and how to make them, and, like, every single process of, you know, how to make a frame, it really bit me really, really hard. And I've had a lot of success and I've had a lot of failure, mostly failure over the years. And I think that's what, you know, kind of forges your way, is failure. Failure is your master. And for me, it really, really started with that, you know, that first Supreme, taking it apart and putting it back together and laying in shitty lines.
So what were the hard lessons you learned from that? Like, what did you pick up from that first experience?
Technically, or, like, you know, like, spiritually? Which way do you want to go?
Well, I mean,
first and foremost, you know,
spiritually, if it's in the context of making better machines, yes, right?
In the concept of making, I mean, I had no concept of making machines. I didn't know what that was. I think it wasn't until very, very late, like, you know, like, later on down the line, 2004 or 5, you know, when I put that Soba Pilot together, that's what made me realize. I was like, oh, well, what the fuck am I going to buy one for? I can, like, just put one together. Like, they sell the kits, they're like $150 less. Like, I can do the same thing he does. But, you know, in fact, it was very much the opposite. It was very, very hard. You know, it was like one of the most futile moments of my life, you know, like, trying to figure it out. But, and I'm still chasing that. Like, to this day, I'm you know, I'm TIG welding uprights this morning, you know, and I'm learning all the time. Every single thing, you know, is a learning experience, and every failure is a path to success.
So the first frame you made, let's hear about that.
My first frame?
Yes.
All right. So at the time when I was, when I first started making stuff, I had a laptop, and I was using this crummy CAD program, and I learned how to use it, and I got some stuff lasered through this. They're just garbage, but I put it all together. I, like, tried to braze it. I didn't know how to, like, you know, MIG weld yet, so I was, like, trying my hand at brazing it, and I was just putting these things together. And then, like, I'm like, well, you know, the mark of, you know, like, if they're good or not, you have to sell one. So if you're selling it, then, and somebody's buying it, then it must be good. So I sold one of those to a guy named Tommy Two-Tone over in Beechwood, New Jersey. And he called me back and he said, these things have no balls. shit. So like, so in my mind, I'm like, oh, like, what do you do? I, got it back from him. I fixed it for him. I tuned it, and he eventually liked it. But that was the lesson: is like, like not only you're making a tattoo machine and you're making it for you to make nice lines or not nice lines or nice shading or not nice shading. You're making them for other people, and you're fucking their job up. Like, you know what I mean? So in my head, like, that failure was like, that was one of the, moreover than like the machine being bad, was like the feeling that like you're putting someone else's job at jeopardy, like in jeopardy, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, it's, to me, that was like, it was a turning point for me. Well, it was the very beginning. I don't know about a turning point, but to make better machines. That was it. It's like, I don't want to be the best machine builder. I just want to build the best machines that I can build. That's it.
Here, here.
I'm talking too much. I feel like I'm talking too much.
Okay, well, hey, then let's move on to Mike Shamwell. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here.
I'd love to hear about your early tattoo machine building experiences. Like so far I haven't heard any cassette motor stories.
Well, I did that back in the 80s. I used to build the cassette, guitar string, all that stuff. I had a friend in school. His dad was a tattoo artist, but he was like in and out of prison and this, that. But he was out of prison at one point, and he kind of showed us how to make those guitar string, the cassette motor. But I mean, that was a long time ago. And then I didn't really start. It was 2010 when I wanted to, even think about tattooing. And so I picked up I didn't even have the internet back then. So I picked up a tattoo magazine. I don't remember which one, but I was looking through it, and I wanted a catalog for a tattoo supply or something. And at the time, Bickney Tattoo Supply was the only one that had, where they would send you a catalog. So I mailed off for one of those, got it. And I didn't even know, the names of the parts or anything. And then I just really kind of fell in love with all the machines in the catalog. And from there, I just kind of started trying to make them. And I mean, it was a disaster for sure. I mean, the first coil I didn't know anything. I'm all self-taught. Yeah, so from there, I just kind of tried to keep figuring out. It took years. I have a bucket full of old machines that are complete garbage. And then, I just kept at it. And, the longer I was interested in it, and then, you change into what style of tattoo machines that you like. And I really focused on Paul Rogers, and just started trying to build a machine like he built. Everything was all hand, by hand, filing, hacksaw, a little drill press. And I still make them like that. I still don't have big tools or anything. I make them all by hand. And that's what I've been doing. And like Greg was saying, I wanted to sell them. So if you want to sell something, you have to really try to put it out there and have a good name. You know what I mean? You don't want to sell garbage, So you really, 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 really focus on trying the best machine you can. So yeah, that's what I did, and that's pretty much it.
Can you hold that up a little higher?
Hold what up?
The machine that you.
A machine? Yeah, like this. This is one I made recently.
I have one of those.
I know, and it's just like, and the guy that wanted one, I was making it. I'm like, what do you want? What color do you want? And he sent me a picture of the one that that Tony has. It's the same color as this, and so yeah, this is the color, the latest one that I made. I got a few more sitting here that I've made. All the Paul Rogers. This one here is some parts I got from Tony. I altered him a little bit, but this is all his stuff, and so like better views. Like Paul Rogers, you got to really throw all the curves in, and they're just beautiful,
Yeah.
Really, really nice machines. And yeah, when you really try to, make something like a Paul Rogers,
you learn from it, you know. And I just love these type of machines. So I make those a lot, but I make all kinds. This one I'm making right now. Everything's hand cut and everything like that. Still make them all by hand.
The wires hanging out.
Yeah, it's not done yet. This one?
Hey,
The
Jeff,
wires hanging out.
grab my machine case from downstairs.
Okay, the one where the machines are sitting on.
Oh, well, there's a little bit of a pause. I've got a fair amount of action here in some of the chat rooms. Raphael says hi, says Wicked. Heather Josh Holly says, hey Gabe, hello guy. Hi Carson. Raphael Marquise says, mate, I was about to go out and get new shrink wraps for my coils. Hi Tony, says Heather. Kraz Tattoo Fine Line says, greetings to all from the city of Puebla and from the studio of Kraz Tattoo Fine Line Ink Store. Hello, Greg. Hey, Michael. Carlo Peck says hello. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to keep going here. Antonio Massimino says, Tony Urbanic, love you, brother. D. Bentley says, where's Mr. Kane? So maybe...
Where's Aaron?
We got to get him on next time we do this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody's shutting up now.
All right, and then we haven't had a chance to introduce Carson yet. Hey, Carson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm curious, did you make regular machines, coil machines, before you moved into rotaries in your early tattoo career?
I have never made a coil, but when I first started my apprenticeship, they had me working on all their coils. Mostly, I think, because they were too lazy to do it themselves. So they had me kind of tuning and fixing. And my experience was that you know, as a regular thing, their machines were always kind of going out of whack, and they had me trying to fix them. But my first machines, I didn't make a cassette tape style, but it was a little bit more ghetto than that. I learned at age like 14, I believe, in school from one of the guys that I went to school with, how to make a tattoo machine out of like an electric motor. So at the time I was using like a RC car motor that I had taken apart, and like bent spoon handle and sewing needle. So yeah, I fucked up a lot of people with that kind of thing. And back then I don't think that I ever thought past my nose, you know. So I would make a new machine for every tattoo that I did. So I probably made 50 or so of that style machine before I, you know, and then my apprenticeship started years later. And
that's when you were talking about.
And that's when I started working a little bit with coils. And at that point I hated rotaries. So like I said, I was doing a lot of tuning for the guys that worked there, but I was also using kind of like National Swing Gate. I think Mickey Sharps was the better of my machines at those days.
Yeah, the Mickey Sharps, the first good machine I bought was the Sharps. Because before that it's Spalding National, right? The one thing I can say about that is when I saw my early work, like a year later, when I was still like seeing it come back in the early days, I wasn't scarring people, you know. The lines were falling out, you know what I mean? But I wasn't scarring them. So I guess if I had to pick one, I would choose that. But so I remember when the Spalding Revolution came out, right? And that fizzled really quick because it was garbage, right? It just it couldn't put it in. And this was the case for a long time. And when rotaries started to come back, we kind of had the same issue where they just weren't, you know, I tried them out a few times. We got a, what was it? A Neotat, a couple others. And it just wasn't healing very saturated. You know, that was the issue that I was getting. And I was having to slow down too much to get that saturation. So it didn't seem like any kind of an upgrade. I was having ergonomic problems, which is why I was experimenting with these things. So Carson comes along with this air-powered machine that you could tattoo a fucking battleship with, right? It was, you know, you had to actually really be careful. Those first, you know, Numas didn't have much in the way of give at all, right? They were
none at all.
pretty unforgiving. And, but it was intriguing, right? And it was like one of the first rotaries that they could actually put ink in the skin. And so anyway, that ended up going through a few generations before you know it, you got a whole bunch of people using them. It was pretty crazy. But then that evolved again. And what happened more recently is finally the rotary tattoo machine technology crossed paths with drone motor technology, basically. Carson, am I getting my story straight here? And so because we've got the drone industry that has got, you know, pouring millions into R&D because, you know, stuff is used by the military, et cetera. We have all these lightweight, powerful, consistent, long-running, don't overheat, et cetera, electric motors on the market now. And those just didn't exist back in the days of the Spalding revolution.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't personally use the drone motors for my machines now. They're a little on the smaller side, and my philosophy is I'd rather have more motor than you would need and not be asking the full capacity of the motor at any given time. So the motors that I use are actually primarily for the automation industry. So robotics and you know, like assembly lines and stuff like that. But I think you know, I would say that there are other rotary companies that are using more along the lines of the very small but still high output motors. I don't personally feel that doesn't really suit what I'm going for.
Right. Yeah, I think that, you know, one of the things that's the most unique about the Numas, the new model, is it does definitely feel a lot more like a coil machine than the other rotaries, and you know, particularly the liner. So I mean, I don't know if that's just strictly because of the motor, or if you accomplish that with the I don't know if you call that a cam, or it's a hybrid between a cam and a swash plate, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you remember years ago when you came out and we had a bunch of artists kind of analyze, you know, I think we had 30 or 40 machines.
It was a very memorable couple of days there, yeah.
So that we did a lot of discovery during that period. And I think for me, the thing that, and I'm sure you would agree, that the thing that we noticed the most was the waveform of the pattern, the needle is, if you were to graph it, what it looks like.
I sent you those waveforms earlier today, if you don't mind pulling some of those up.
Yeah, I'm sending them over to my computer now, so it will take 2 minutes.
Okay, so in a minute we'll actually look at you know, a couple of waveforms here, and we've got a coil machine and a rotary machine there, and yeah, they're definitely different waveforms.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, so that was the main thing that you know, at the time I think I believed that the give was the main thing missing from a rotary. Now I don't really believe that. I just think that it's more about that pattern that's being created, and ultimately what's happening is the needle, because it has this, it's committed to going around in a circle, because that's what a motor is doing. So it has to go all the way forward and all the way back. But also most of the driving is happening like on a cam, it's happening on one side and the other, and not on the front or back of that rotation. And so what ends up happening is you have the needle go out and then sort of hesitate before it comes back, and then sort of hesitate before it goes back out. And that hesitation,
I'm almost there.
is what is apparent when you're using a rotary, especially when transitioning from a coil to a rotary. You feel that like you have to slow down, or it's dragging. It's
you get the snag, right?
Yeah, snagging. Yeah. So what I basically did with this first cam was I removed half of the action of the cam. So basically, it's in its reverse position. So Gabe's showing you like a standard rotary here.
Yeah, here, yeah, that's very much just your standard sine wave.
So in the backstroke or upstroke of the needle, in the retractive position, I intentionally put a hesitation in that position of the cam so that it forces the cam to stay back for 50% of its entire life cycle.
Uh-huh. So it's in and out of the skin a lot faster.
It's 50% reduced, basically, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Gabe, let's go back to that last one. Okay, so one of the things that we found that was kind of remarkable was the double bounce. And this was on every coil machine that we graphed. And I don't know how different this would be if it were actually going into skin. And I'm not even sure how relevant this is. But since we've got machine makers on the panel here, probably would share this. Yeah, the needle would get to the bottom of the cycle. And, at that point, presumably you got the armature bar hitting the coil core and it's stopping, right? But it doesn't immediately pull back. It starts to drift a little bit. And then it appears that a shock wave is traveling down the needle bar, ends up knocking those needles back down again for like a double whammy before it's able to actually retract. We found that in every single one of them. The only one that it didn't actually do that on was it was a machine from a Welker machine that had a rubber stopper in the I'm trying to remember, it was in the armature bar. Man, they should get that machine out. It was a strange machine, and it didn't necessarily put the ink in great. It was more of a novelty, but it was the only one that didn't do that double bounce.
Yeah, it was like that rubber was causing it to bounce back, basically, and eliminate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it did. It caused that retraction. So of course, that's without skin being in the equation. And maybe that double bounce just wouldn't happen at all. But yeah, I mean, long story short, if you look at those two different graphs, the amount of time the needle is spending in the skin with a standard rotary is much greater.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 times as much. And so what we didn't see in that test, but what I have concluded from further research is that when you implement what we were doing at the time with my failed machine, was we had set what we called the armature pin, which was just the attachment point to the needle loop. We set that in rubber, and so it didn't necessarily have to make its full strike, right, or its full extension. But what I discovered is that when you implement that, what you ultimately are doing, because you still need to get to that same depth in order to make the mark, or in order for it to be effective mark, because there's that curve. What you do is you kind of flatten that curve, and so if your 1 millimeter roughly was here, and so your time frame is there, if you flatten that, now your time frame becomes wider because you still need to get to that millimeter of depth. So that's why I currently believe that having give in a rotary actually makes that worse. It makes that drag longer, like by 5 or 10% more.
Well, I honestly think that most of the rotaries that tried to engineer in some kind of give just ended up giving up some very much needed power in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, we've kind of gone around and introduced everyone, and we don't necessarily have a solid agenda of topics, but I'd love to find some things that are applicable across all kinds of machines. And I guess one of the most important ones I'd want to ask is about consistency across long stretches of time. And this is, one of the big selling points that have driven people to switch to rotaries. What do you think are some of the things that people who love coiled machines can do to keep their machines running more consistently? Or what, in the course of building them, can you do to keep them from drifting out of tune? Why don't we start with
demagnetizer?
What's that?
A
Get a demagnetizer. if you run them for so long, they start to store up magnetic resonance. You know,
Smack it with a hammer.
smack it with a hammer. That's it. That's your demagnetizer. You hit it with a hammer.
Your demagnetizer.
You know,
It's funny
Make
because
it- put it
I know
facing.
that there's stories of Paul Rogers, like, solving problems by whacking his machines, or people hand him a machine, he'd plug it in and then just whack it against the countertop and hand it back to him. Is this kind of what you're talking about? You're just
Yeah, no, I mean,
Smack
but
it, or
if you use a machine for any length of time, like I've been using the same shader for a year and a half, like it's my go-to thing. When it starts to bog down or it starts to lose power, you have to turn the power up. There's like, any number of little variables to make it run back to where it was. But sometimes you just leave it alone for a month and it's just as strong as the first day you got it, so it sounds a little weird, but it's the truth, like.
okay. Well, this is one of the, not to keep comparing with rotaries but I mean, at this particular point in history, we kind of.
Oh no, I mean it's not a problem to compare it to a rotary. Like I know a rotary doesn't hold magnetic resonance like that.
So the voodoo magic aspect of coil machines, right? And you both love and hate the voodoo magic aspect, right? That's not present with rotary machines. You know what I mean? They are voodoo magic free, right?
Yeah, plug and
They're
play.
worse.
Yeah.
Talking about magnetic polarity, that is a perfect example of that.
Magnetic resonance.
Magnetic resonance. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's a buildup of something completely invisible.
Yeah.
It's not like an indicator.
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like it's happened to me before where I'm like, hey, you know what? This one's not working so well. I'll put it down and pick something else up. And then, you know what? I wonder if this thing is doing it, and I'll pick it back up and it works fine. It's
yes. And I've had that experience countless times. I never knew why. I just kind of discounted it to voodoo magic. You know what I mean?
It could very well be voodoo magic, guy.
I got a question about voodoo magic.
Residual magnetism.
It makes that machines. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But that in my experience, that's what I think. That's what I think it is,
Let's
like,
hear Carson's question about voodoo magic.
Well, so I've always wondered because they say that your body puts off an electromagnetic field. So I've always wondered if that plays a part in why a coil sometimes is working fine and sometimes it's not. Like, does your electromagnetic field potentially change according to some voodoo magic stuff?
these are the
a
burning.
rubber tube. No.
This is what we're here for. Let's fix them.
Those two magnetic fields could possibly resonate either harmfully or helpfully.
Wow.
Like, there's even people who can't come near TVs because they'll cause a reaction in the pixels of the TV. Have you ever heard of this? Because the tube of the TV has some kind of electromagnetic field.
Well, everything on the planet has some sort of frequency and harmonics to it. So what you were talking about before is residual magnetism, and that's based on the material that the frame of the machines and the coil cores themselves are physically made out of. When electricity is
Nailed it.
applied to the metal, it actually interferes with the, what's that?
I think that's background.
Yeah, I think maybe we need to mute somebody, but I'm sorry, Mark, go on.
Oh, anyways, electricity, the current supplied to the metal, it physically alters the molecular structure of the metal. Now, all metals have memory, and some metals will return to their natural state rather rapidly, and some will not. So when it comes down to coil core material, basically, it took me years to find something I liked. And what you're searching for in coil cores is the lowest possible carbon content for the materials. So people that use 1018, that will retain a lot of residual magnetism for a longer period of time. When you get into 12L14, which is another cheap, easy to machine metal that a lot of people use, that retains the magnetism for even a longer period of time. The closer you can get down to pure iron with the least amount of carbon content, that will release that residual magnetism a lot faster. So the materials, the frame materials, the core materials, your armature bar materials, everything comes into play in that equation. It's not in people's head though. It does. The metal retains magnetism after it's let sit for a long enough period of time. That magnetism will dissipate, and the molecular structure of the material will return to its natural state, or as close to its natural state as it can. If that makes any sense.
Do you think that matters as much for the frame as it does for the coil cores, or is it really much more important with the coil cores, the metal type?
The coil cores are most important because that's what is electromagnetically pulling your armature bar down.
And so is the armature bar equally important, would you say?
I would say there is a hierarchy there, but it's all important. The frame, when you start getting into frames, then you're even talking about the frame structure, the upright versus the entire side plate, because that starts to mess with that beautiful magnetic field that's going around. Any object that gets stuck in there creates it's an obstruction. It messes with the field and the frequency. I had some really intense conversations with Danny Fowler. That guy's a goddamn genius. But now, whether any of these things are measurable realistically is I mean, obviously the magnetic retention, the residual magnetism is obvious, but a lot of times people start to think about things that really are kind of insignificant. Like, you mentioned your own personal frequencies. I don't think that could come into play to alter in a measurable manner, the way a machine runs. But yes, it's going to have some play, I would think, but it would be insignificant. That's my opinion though. So
I think in some way, like if you're able to measure it, it would be something that you would have to run that machine constantly, for like any length of time, just to see how much residual magnetism.
Right, and then there's going to be other variables at play.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, like if you're tattooing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. I mean, I work in a street shop. I do 5-minute tattoos.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you decay.
all these things can be measured, just not with our technology that we have. I mean, if you want to get NASA involved in other places, and people measure this kind of stuff.
Like nobody cares about tattoo machines. Like,
no, why would they?
I do.
So this is a dumb question probably, but is there such a thing as a demagnetizer or some type of?
Absolutely. You could buy one from any hardware store out there. It's going to have one. You could toss your machine on it, demagnetize it in minutes, and go right back to work.
You go to Lowe's and get a hammer, no problem.
and that works. I strongly suggest just taking a screwdriver, holding the metal part, and whacking the bottom of your machine with the handle of the screwdriver. You'll be amazed that will speed up the alignment of the molecules just a little bit faster. But it's not a cure-all, but it'll work in a pinch.
So that demagnetizing plate that you're talking about, is that something you have to plug in, or is that just like a?
They have both. I mean, the electric ones work a lot faster, but I mean, there's on some of the machinery downstairs, I use magnetic chucks. So there's a way to reverse the polarity of a magnet with a lever. So yeah, you can buy little demagnetizers in the hardware store to just put the tip of your screwdriver and it'll demagnetize the tip of your screwdriver pretty instantly just by it's a polarity thing. So the electric ones work way more efficient and faster, but there's many ways to do it.
Yeah, you could, in theory, you could have one right there in your or near your workstation where you keep your stuff, and as you're breaking down, and you wipe your machine down and set it down on that thing, and have that be just a step in your process.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
sense.
I mean, it's funny that like I was really just kind of joking about that, but it does.
Well, okay.
I think it's amazing that we just had like an over 10-minute conversation about, like how much magnetism your frame is storing. That's like,
but this
I'm never
actually,
going to get that conversation anywhere else.
this actually was based on the consistency problem, right?
Right.
And
Right.
the reason I brought that up is because it is a big issue. And
No, I think it's
sitting down with a fucking great running machine. You love this machine. You've done a million tattoos with it, and it's running perfectly. And you start working, and it's just as you want it. And a few hours pass, and not so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Spring,
yeah.
heat,
And then the
spring.
next day, it's perfect again. It's like, what the fuck? And that's why I brought up this voodoo magic thing. And thank you. I mean, we could have an entire panel just about tattoo machine voodoo magic and trying to get to the bottom
Well,
of
there's
it.
there's tattoo machine theory and there's tattoo machine fact.
Well, this is just science. I mean, it's any metallurgist.
Yeah,
Again, none of us are metallurgists for sure, but I've spent a good deal of time just researching things and talking to people that are way smarter than I'll ever be. For instance, I mean, years ago when I first rebuilt Lyle's giant Jonesy, I started talking to engineers in these giant electromagnetic corporations, and these people would pick up the phone and answer questions, and I'd follow along as hard as I could. But things along the lines of, you're talking about electromagnetic cores, and not in theory, in practice, the length of your core and the length of the windings is more important than the number of layers. Whereas tattooers, we've always, I want a 12 wrap, or I want a 10 wrap, or I want, that's significant. But by adding one more wind to the length, or two more winds to the length, is a much bigger contributing factor than the number of reps. It's kind of mind-blowing, a lot of the things I've learned along the way, talking to people totally outside our industry that specialize in what they do.
Yeah, I think, like, getting back to like the voodoo magic thing, that's like when I started getting into tattoo machines, it was more, a lot of the information was passed down generationally or through your mentor or whoever. And like I said, it was tattoo machine theory. It wasn't like anybody really had any facts. Nobody's an engineer. So these things that have, been passed down, have literally, mouth to ear passed down. There wasn't any books on, how to, make these things run more efficiently.
Did any
So
of
it's good
you
to get outside views, like from, people who absolutely know, rather
any
than
of you Machine Gun Magazine subscribers?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, got them all.
Yep, I've still got the
Incredible-
originals laying around
Incredible
somewhere.
resource.
Yeah, I have them all still.
Yeah. Now the thing is too, you got a lot of this. Again, a lot of information was passed down, but on top of that, a lot of misinformation was passed down
Yes.
too.
Well, yeah, I think that's
so-
that's what I was getting at. Yes.
Now you're going to notice that we all had access to a lot more information. Starting the mid '90s, Windows 95, the chat rooms and all that fun stuff before the internet as we know it nowadays. As this fucking Jetson technology we're dealing with right here. Now you can Google anything you want. So if you want to understand residual magnetism, just go hit Google, type in residual magnetism, and just go down that rabbit hole for days and days on end. I mean, that's what I've done in trying to improve the performance of my products or get an edge on a competitor and things like that. But now it's no longer secret. I mean, I still won't share what material I use for coil cores, and I still won't share my supplier for that. But I'll tell you, it is the lowest carbon content iron you can, or closest to iron you can find. Good luck finding it, because it took me years and years and years, and there's very few people that manufacture it. But that's what you're searching for. It's there. It's available. And yeah, it's just Google. Google is, I don't know, man. I don't know how everybody's not a goddamn genius and an entrepreneur at this point in time, but it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, you have the whole world of information in the palm of your hand. And we're too busy doing like TikTok videos.
Yeah, I'm not a TikToker. Sorry, I got no dance moves. I'm as white as they come, man. So
Yeah, I wanted to talk about materials you guys have brought up before about 1018 and 12014, and about
John.
magnetism. because I have major success through the years using both.
It'll
So
work,
to
but it's
me,
not going to work as efficient as others.
I would argue that personally, because I haven't had many issues. Out of the box, yeah, 1018, I don't recommend it. But if you get it annealed correctly, it softens the material divinely for me. And I've never had a problem with it. 12L14 with the lead content being soft. It is a softer hitting machine. It is smoother. The shaders I've built, and they're quieter on a annealed ductile cast frame.
Right.
So I've had a lot of stuff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. Yeah, and you're right. But now in theory, when a machine's running true, your armature bar should never actually contact your coil cores when it's running optimal. That doesn't happen an awful lot. You're going to be an amazing machine builder, and you definitely have a name without a doubt. I don't mean to take anything away at all, but you're right. If you take 12L, or if you take 1018 and you put it through additional processes, yes, it can be made better than standard. But you take 1018 and you substitute that with like a 1012 or a 1010, or you get down to a 108.
Yeah, I've used 1010.
Every step you go down is going to increase the efficiency on a level that probably most tattooers will never recognize, but most machine builders will, because you're more in tune with, it's like wine. Okay. I like wine. I can appreciate wine up to about $30, $40 a bottle. Okay. When you start getting beyond that, I lose the ability to distinguish a $40 bottle to a $140 bottle. Okay. I can kind of do that with scotch, but with wine, nope, my taste buds become desensitized at the $40 range.
And you're throwing away $100.
Yeah, and I'm wasting my money beyond that. Now, if I enjoyed that $140 wine, I would buy it for sure, occasionally when I need it. But it's the same thing with the materials. Some guys can tell the difference, some guys can't. Some guys can tell the difference between a Toyota and a Ferrari, and other guys can't. They're both freaking cars, and that's just the way it is. But same thing with art. We all see that regularly. Okay. We put our heart and soul into our artwork, and the customer doesn't appreciate shit. They can't tell the difference between the guy that's $200, $250 an hour and their buddy Paco who's, doing shit behind a dumpster. So it's still a tattoo in their eyes, so it just depends on what level you want to appreciate the product, I guess. So it's cool that you go through those extra steps, Tony, because a lot of people aren't even aware that that's a possibility. So that gives you a bit of an edge over a lot of builders out there for sure.
But like you said, in the beginning, there wasn't much information out there when we started building. So through the years, meeting people on the convention circuit, I was blessed to spend a lot of time with Jerry Rieger. And he flipped a lot of tricks into my bag. He taught me a lot. And spending time with Greg, Greg has taught me a lot, like blown back. But Jerry Jerry was one of my mentors that taught me the most about the horseshoe magnet, the weights, the balances, the geometry, the tuning. Aaron threw me a couple of tidbits back in the day, but there wasn't that knowledge readily available. So,
well, Aaron has the advantage of having studied blacksmithing and metrology and stuff like that too. So, he took the extra step other people never, they went down that road, or it's just, it's like anything else. The more time you spend learning and practicing, the better you're going to get at just about anything,
Sure.
And the guy that's willing to think outside the box is always going to have some sort of advantage over the other guys. Now, do you, after your machines are cut, bent, welded, put together, stuff like this, you're annealing your frames too, right? After the fact?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a major thing. A lot of these people that are mass producing machines on CNC, stuff like this, they're taking a solid block that's in a relatively stable state. They're cutting it. They're messing with the entire molecular structure. Then they're trying to bolt components on it, send it out the door, and they're wondering why it never runs right, because that metal is under such stress, and it's
Right.
got to be alleviated. And so it's stuff like I say, you and I know, other people that put the effort in are going to know. I'm fine with sharing that information with other tattooers that take the trade seriously. I can talk for fucking days. You can ask just
Right.
about anybody, and I love to share my experiences with people that appreciate it. But I refuse to talk on deaf ears. I had my ass handed to me by Rick Walters years ago because back in the Inkslinger Ball days, I used to. I was getting started, and I used to just, for some reason, had a lot of old timers that I don't know. I was too ignorant to realize I wasn't in their league, and I just walk up and make friends, and they shared a lot of stuff with me. Catfish Carl, Rick Walters. I used to meet with those guys all the time back in the days, and there was one point I was hunkering down in their booth in Inkslinger's Ball, and they were just dumping some knowledge on me, and I was like just overwhelmed, and I was like, wow, thanks guys. I'm like, I can't even tell you how important this is. Thanks. He's like, don't worry, your secrets are safe with me. And Rick fucking eyeballs like pierced straight through me. And he's like, you don't fucking get it, do you? And I was like, what? And he's like, you don't get it. He tells me, he's like, we don't give you this knowledge, or, we don't pass this down to you so that it dies with you. They're kind of trusting me to take that and share it with others that are so-called worthy or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was I mean, that's clear as day in my mind right now. And that was a turning point in my entire philosophy about tattooing and business. And I work with a lot of my competitors, and I share ideas, and then engineering. I got a million ideas and no time to do them all. So I work with other builders out there, and most of the bigger guys out there. We share information back and forth all the time, and I enjoy that as long as there's somebody that's I don't want to say I deem worthy, but somebody that's proven themselves. They've got seat time and they're not going anywhere. That's what matters to me. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole thing is about paying it forward.
Yeah.
We're the first thing that I experienced when I went to my first convention, I was intimidated as hell. I knew enough to have a sense of who the big names were, and I wanted to get tattooed by Jack Rudy if I could, and I ended up really, I mean, it was humbling, but at the same time, these people were willing to give me the time of day if I approached them the right way. Jack was willing to critique my flash set, even though I'd clearly ripped off his style a little bit, as long as I was, humble about it and willing to admit it. Yeah, see, look here, I kind of ripped off your stuff.
We all did that.
Because it's awesome, man. I found that these people that were really, huge influences on me that seemed unreachable were, in fact, very ready to engage new people in the industry. And a lot of it is not just about, here, I'm sharing my secrets with you, but we're trying to shape the coming generations in the right way. We want to make sure that they develop the same values that we find important. And some of that we have to have handed to us. I almost had my ass kicked on the convention floor when I was a young, brash tattoo guy getting photographed a lot by tattoo magazines because, I kind of forgot. It's like, whoa, I didn't invent this industry. I'm not just, here to be celebrated. You know what I mean? This is way bigger than me, and I have to remember to acknowledge what others have done on my behalf to make this all possible.
we all should be grateful. I mean, everybody on this panel right here has definitely reached a level of success, and I just have the philosophy that I don't want to be successful alone. I want others to, put it this way. If Tony, if you and I sit here and we start sharing what we know together, something I bring to the table might inspire you just to get to that next level. It might be small jump, but all of a sudden you may have an aha moment. And then, And whereas a lot of people will be like, oh, fuck. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I told him that. Da, da, da. And I'm like, no, man. I'm like, I want to see what you do with that. I want to see what you do with that. And hopefully whatever you do with it, you know, triggers a little something back my way where like, oh, son of a bitch, how the hell did I not see that? And then I might, you know, take that and add a little bit back to it. You know, it's like, I like that interplay. That's what keeps me motivated and driven. I mean, I'll be honest with you, almost 30 years in the goddamn business, I get bored from time to time. And there's days when I'm like, why don't I do something else? But I can't let it go because I love it. And I need that interaction because I'm still insanely passionate about it.
Speaking of interaction, I'm going to read out some of the comments from the chat room. There's tons of them over here.
I thought it was just us five. I'm going to shut my mouth now.
There's hundreds of people watching. So let's see. We've got D. Bentley's tuning in from New Zealand. Patrick Cost says, "Hi, you geeks." Thomas Ramirez says, "Honored to be here to listen and learn from Texas." Ken says, "My first legitimate handmade coil frame was made from an F-150 bumper bracket.
Nice.
Put down a lot of ink over the years." James Adams, "Thank you for making the industry what it is." Carson Hill, "I love that hat, but thank you all you guys for making the industry what it is today." We've got Biotrantra, Salutes Master. Steve Lemon, "First machine I bought was a Mickey Sharp's T-dial, now using a Stigma Spear." Oscar also says, "Salutes Masters." I'm just going to keep going. Eric says, "What's up, guys? Guy, you my man, bro. I made the conversion from coil to rotary and I love it." James Adams, "It's kind of crazy. I'm sitting here listening to you guys and waiting on the UPS to drop off my Numa 4. LOL. Oh, that's lots of laughter. He's laughing. Erica says, "I just got my Spectra Flux in the last 2 weeks. I've been loving it." Marlon says, "Greetings from Brazil." Antonio says, "Okay, got it set up. This has been amazing." Jessica Easton says, "I am that TV person." Holy shit, that's Carson. That's your TV person. They screw up the TV with electricity. Patrick says Carson is right. They're digging your electric theories here. Kristen Dottie says yes. Okay, hello from Costa Rica. Hello from Cocoa Beach, Florida. Bobby asks, "Could it be oxidization that interferes with the currents?" Oh, geez, there's so many more comments here. I don't even know what to say. I'll bow out again. People are loving it.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in and giving us your comments. This is a great opportunity to ask those pointed questions, but we don't have time to go through every comment. I guess since we've got limited time, I just wanted to ask if anyone on this panel has got any favorite closing bits of wisdom that they learned from a mentor, or that they learned from somebody that they've built machines with, something that really stuck in your head.
Judy Parker told me once, I did a convention with Winona Martin in Philadelphia. It was a Cherry Hill convention. I think it was like 94. And I walked up there. I was still green behind the ears. And
green behind the ears.
Or whatever, wet behind the ears. Yeah, green. My bad.
I love you, dude.
I bought a set of flash off of her, and she signed it, and she signed on the bottom, "Don't get too uppity in this business." And it goes back to what Mark was saying about being humble and paying it forward and giving it back. And that always resonated into my mind. I was like, what's she talking about? Don't get too uppity. Like, I'm nobody. I'm doing nothing. Like, I do what I love, right? So years later, actually someone stole that set of flash off me, but years later, as I put 20, 30 years into this business, I've changed in so many different ways. It went from wanting to be a rock star in magazines and go to the conventions to just wanting to do nice tattoos on my clients, just wanting to build nice machines for myself. It wasn't about the money anymore. So it came back to that whole beginning full circle. And now I'm at the point in my life that I do just want to give back to the people who deserve it. And I just wanted to point that out to Mark. Like, I totally understand that, man. And yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
I got something I would like to add, or as a closing point to consider. And so sometimes I notice that it seems like there's a divide in the industry, or there develops this divide between modern and original, or, you know, coils versus rotaries. And I don't like it. I have always been, like I said, when I started my introduced, I've always kind of been against rotaries. And when I first made my first rotary, I refused to admit that it was one because I kind of hated the technology at the time.
Yeah, I remember that first email. It's not a rotary.
Yeah, it was totally a rotary. But, you know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, so you know, like I'm sure most rotary builders like to say they're, it runs like a coil, right? And of course, there's probably tons of debate about that. But the point being that I think that it's really important that we acknowledge, kind of like you, I don't remember which one of you were saying, but acknowledge our past, and the, you know, if we walk away from what was so good of the past, we're gonna kill a part of the industry that doesn't, you know, one of the more important parts of the industry, you know, because I personally think that coils are, if they always ran perfect and if none of that other stuff was a factor, they're a better, it's just a better running machine for doing tattoos than a rotary at face value. And so I just think it's important that we maintain the humility.
I gotta kiss you, Carson.
Aw.
Yeah, like
I
Well
love coils,
said, my man.
I've never used a rotary, and I've been trying to make one for probably 4 or 5 years, but I'm always getting orders for coils and stuff, and like nobody knows me for making. I'm not like against them at all. I think they're cool. I think what they can do, there's like an advantage over a coil, and there's certain things that a coil has an advantage over a rotary, but it doesn't mean like we can't all be friends. It's like, who cares? Like, all it's got to do is go like this.
Gotta go A to B.
I mean,
It does.
the thing that's happened is,
You got a coil, you got a rotary, it goes like this. It puts
Well,
ink in the
that's
skin.
happened though is
People
machines
use-
become very convenient, right? So now that we've got convenient tattoo machines, it's harder for people to go to the less convenient ones, right?
Right.
And so, like, for example, I've been like in a give a 6-hour session. I'm about 4.5 hours with my rotary machines, and I've been playing around with this guy. My buddy Rob and I have made a few of these, and we've got an aluminum one. I don't have the finished one down with me, but I just like the way it hits. You know, I'm going back to lining with these, and I'm like, oh, shit, right. It feels so different.
You should get those investment
but it's
hats.
not as convenient, right? So to go back and forth between machines, it's all of a sudden like, man, I shouldn't have to do this shit. It's like, I shouldn't have to get up and turn the dial on my TV now that I have a remote. So I'm trying not to let convenience drive every decision I make, you know, and that's a hard thing because it's not convenient to, you know, you got to swap out the entire clip cord, right? But then it saves you a half hour because you're not having to go over your lines as much, and, you know,
Right.
yeah, I'm trying to allow my work habits to remain dynamic and not just settle into, okay, this is the most convenient thing, and it gets my clients in and out the door, and everybody's happy, and the tattoos look good, and I'm getting paid. I don't want to just settle for that, because then when I pick up a machine that performs differently, and you know, it's like such a refreshing feeling, right? You know, driving a different car, riding somebody else's bicycle, you know, there's it's good to do that every now and then, not get too habitual. I guess that's sort of what I was getting at there.
Yeah.
That's my closing comment.
When rotaries first started getting popular, my phone would ring and people be blowing me up like, you know, hey, well, what about this? What's better? I'm like, you know what? They both make the needle go up and down. It's just that simple. It's another tool in your box, and every tool has a place. So you're basically gonna, you know, I mean, Guy, you don't paint your entire paintings with one brush, you know, each
In fact, that's a mistake to do that. But
so right. So same
right
thing.
now,
I mean, it,
little paintings with a big brush.
Machines are the same exact way. Different machines are going to have different advantages at different times, and to ignore an entire set of tools for one reason or the other, being anti-rotary or anti-coil, is it's ignorant. It's absolutely ignorant. If you're not experimenting with them, at least for your own well-being, finding out why you don't like it, try it, don't like it, and then put it aside if that's the case. But like, at least experience it and see what the hubbub's about. You know, there might be a use for it from time to time. And then most importantly, use what works best for you. Your hand speed, your techniques, everything, those are all variables too. So there is no right way. There's no wrong way. There's no right tool. There's no wrong tool. I mean, you know, shit. Look at Tabori style stuff. That shit's in solid as it ever gets, you know, and that's not like, 120 cycles per second or anything like that. It's done right. Somebody took a technique and a tool and they mastered it.
Right. But it is
what it comes
classic,
down
yes,
to.
it works.
Yeah. Find what works for you and then just, continue to fine tune that.
I think one of the most important
that's what
things
I'd say.
is the tattoo. It's not the tattoo's fault. Like, make a good tattoo. Use whatever you want. Use what you know to use.
If you can do it with a hammer and nail, that works. And then,
do a lot
Mike,
of things.
you've been very quiet. I'm pretty sure Mike is still on the line, or you've been pretty quiet. Let's hear your favorite thing you've heard from a mentor, or you've learned while building machines that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about mentor. I just learned it on my own, and yeah, but I just listening to everything and learning, and I think it's great. I like rotaries. I like to try to build one. I've been thinking about that for a while, and yeah, I just love coil machines and whatever. I just continue to learn each day and listen to all you guys. It's been really great, and yeah, I don't have a mentor that taught me anything. I learned, but you still learn from everybody just by watching what people are doing and getting inspired by people, and yeah, like Tony Urbanek and Greg, those guys I've been watching for a long time, and yeah, so in a way, like I don't have a mentor or anything, but yeah, I do look at other people's work and I'm inspired by it, and I try to go and figure out how I can do something like that, and yeah, that's pretty much how I do it.
So what would you tell people who don't have a mentor who want to get into building machines?
Yeah, just do it. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. That's what I do. And you don't have to have all the.
It's the metal in your eye.
What's that?
Start making mistakes, and sooner or later you'll figure out what does work.
Reach out to people.
It's a metal in your eye. You'll figure it out real quick after that.
Hey, it didn't stop me, Greg. I kept going. That was the most expensive machine I've ever built, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying?
That was a learning
It's a metal in your fingers, dude. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
Breathe in that smoke.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Get it popping, son.
I would reach out to builders. I mean, that's what I do all the time. I put myself in contact with builders. That's how I met Mikey, actually. I saw what he was doing, and it was very adjacent to what I have been doing. So I just figured, you know what? This guy has an appreciation for what I love. I'm just going to reach out to him. I don't know him, but out of respect, I just talk to this guy because I appreciate what he does. And there's people who reach out to me all the time. It's like, hey, man, I like what you do. They ask me questions, and I let them know. I mean, that's the best way to go about it.
Actually,
talk to people.
That's a great note. Do we want to do the last round? Everyone can just straight up give us the best contact information for everybody watching, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah. My name is Tony Urbanek. It's pronounced Urbanek. And you can find me on Instagram at Tony Urbanek. I own Inkadoo Tattoo Studio in Pittsburgh. You could stop by. My workshop's in the basement. I answer my emails. It's TonyUrbanek@comcast.net. Google my name, you'll find it.
And, your workshop starts when?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, a week from today. And so
Week-
anybody that's interested in that should reach you how?
Actually,
they
they can go to tattoo.
reinventing.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Reinventingthetattoo.com/build a tattoo machine.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
And
that's
of course, you can just email me directly if you missed that. And that's your email address is?
my email.
Yes.
Tony Urbanek, TonyUrbanek @comcast.net.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tony. All right, Mark.
I'm Mark. That's it. Mark, I own Needle Jig. If you want to reach me directly, you could just mark@needlejig.com. It's MARC though, not a K. Follow us on Instagram. Obviously, Needle Jig is the tail for all the social medias. I just started a personal Instagram though. It's called Weekend Hack, and that's more of my personal projects, man. Rebuilding a bulldozer, some other random stuff, things I cut and burn and bend and make in my personal time when I get a little free time. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me. If I'm in the building, I'll answer the phone. I always answer my emails unless it gets buried with spam, and then just hit me up again. Don't take it personal. I never would ignore anybody. So.
And you've been interviewing some artists here on the Reinventing Tattoo Network as well.
Yeah.
And that's on, is it every Monday or is it every other Monday?
At this point, I'm going to try and do something every Monday, but it's hard right now. Just this weekend, I launched a whole new shopping cart platform. So to be honest with you, I was late getting here because I've been putting out little tiny fires on the internet for the last few days for, things that didn't come over right into migration. So, but as long as I have time and I'm going to try and do something live every Monday, whether it be 15 minutes or some of these talks have been going almost 2 hours. And it's just good to talk to people that care. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah. So you can find Mark's programming in our schedule of events. All right. And then Greg, where can people find you?
My name is Greg Degisento. I own Mr. Blue Sky Tattoo just outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey. If you want to look at my work, if you want to look at the tattoo machines I build, go to Veritas MFG on Instagram or veritasmfg.com. All the machines I make are 100% minus capacitors, wire, screws, and washers, handmade. I don't use CNC and I don't use laser. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have in the past, but for the past like maybe 5 or 6 years, I spend most of my time in a tiny shed in my backyard in the freezing cold or in the sweltering heat making tattoo machines. It is something that I love to do, and it's only something that somebody loves to do would do because like you have to be insane to do it that way. But it's cool. Do what you do. I do what I do. It's fun. I love tattoo machines. Tony was a huge mentor to me. And I'd like to thank him for throwing my name in the hat to be involved in this discussion. Guy, it was really hard for me to not fan out when I first saw you on my laptop, but super excited to be here. Mark, I just want to go on record and say that you make the absolute best needle jig for curved mags I've ever used. They were the absolute best when I bought them. It changed everything.
Thank you.
Mikey, he also makes everything by hand. It's super cool to see somebody else doing that. And I'm gonna try a rotary. I have to. Carson, I don't know you very well, but I look forward to hopefully corresponding more with you. I think you have a lot of great ideas. The things that you're coming up with certainly reach beyond the capacity of my shed in my backyard. So I commend you for that. Thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Being on there.
Love you, Tone.
All right, Mike, how do we find you?
My name, Mike Shamwell. You can find me on Instagram. It's Mikey_Shamwell. And yeah, I post up stuff all the time. Just machines, everything to do with machines and painting flash. And yeah, you can just check me out on Instagram. That's the best way to reach me. Yeah, and thanks, Tony, for inviting me to be a part of this. It's been really cool to see all you guys and meet all you guys. And yeah, just thanks a lot for that.
Thanks for being part of the conversation.
Thank you.
All right, Carson, where do we find you?
So I'm on Instagram also as Numa Tattoo Machines, and you can also do NumaTattooMachines.com. You can call the shop. It's 805-370-1035. I'm always here and available for questions or just discussion. And I would like to echo Greg and just say that it's been a lot of fun discussing, and I would also be interested in connecting more with all of you. So expect me to appear randomly, either on Instagram or in some way.
Word up.
Yeah, hit me up anytime.
Cool.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you all. This has been a fantastic talk. We'll have to again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Have fun, everyone. Anybody that's still tuning in, you should definitely download the Reinventing the Tattoo app and consider subscribing. And yeah,